Hi, welcome to this channel. My name is Leonard, and this is a new format in which I will analyze each week the weekly transit, which means the planetary movement and their subtle effects on us. So let's jump right into it. So just as a quick reminder before we will begin now with this week's transits, this is quite a small channel still, and I would be very happy if you leave a subscribe and a like to this video, and you can also hit the notification bell so you keep up to date with all the new weekly interpretations on this channel. And without further ado, let's look at this weekly transit from the 13th of September to the 19th of September. So in this format I will not speak about all the planetary movements which are happening during this entire week, as there are many, and also including the moon phase. We will talk about many small subtle changes. In this format I will more focus on the most important aspects in this week. And in this week we have 2 days actually where main events are happening. Starting with Tuesday, the 14th of September, we will have the Sun opposite Neptune, as well as the planet Mars entering a new sign, Libra. And then the next main events will happen on Friday, the 16th of September, which is the Sun forming a trine aspect to the planet Pluto, as well as Venus squaring Saturn. So let's have a closer look to the aspect Sun opposing Neptune. The Sun in astrology is symbolizing the self, it's symbolizing the heart. It is our own individual perspective upon reality. The way consciousness is crystallizing in each one of us is reflected through the Sun. Now, when I talk about these transits, you will notice that I will not focus on the zodiac sign that these planets are in, because doesn't matter in which sign the Sun or Neptune will be, all the time the specific frequency of this aspect Sun opposing Neptune, it is the same fragrance, the same type of feeling or nuance as it would be in any of the signs, just from a slightly different perspective. A good example would be the musical interval. So the distance of two notes, which doesn't matter in which key you will play a certain interval, it always will transmit the same type of emotion. And the same is also present within these planetary transits. So now, as we were saying, the Sun symbolizing the self, and the Neptune, the planet Neptune, is symbolizing our capacity to surrender to the divine, or also to surrender in general, to surrender into something which is bigger than us, into the big mysticism, to the big unknown. It is exactly that part of our being which is dissolving, the drop into the ocean. Now, when these two planetary objects, note that we call in astrology the Sun also a planet, even though in astronomy it is clear that it is a star, not a planet. But in astrology, for the simplification of the terminology, we also consider them planets. Now, when these two planets are forming an opposition, which means from the perspective of the Earth, they are opposite to each other and in the opposite zodiac sign. This forms a certain sense of tension, a certain sense of difficulty to integrate both parts equally or harmoniously together. It is this basic sense of polarity, exactly like plus and minus, the masculine and the feminine, everything which is complementary, opposing each other, which means from a certain lower perspective it is impossible to integrate them, and we tend to swing back and forth like a pendulum to one of the other side. But taking the transformative perspective and the higher perspective, we are able to integrate both simultaneously by centering in the middle of them. Now, when the self, the sun, is opposing Neptune, the capacity to surrender, it will be a challenge for us on this day, and because there's a certain fading in and fading out process also in the few days before and after, we'll notice a certain sense of challenge with our capacity to surrender ourselves to the divine. And because of this opposition, there might be certain problems with certain let's say challenges that we want to preserve ourself or the idea of ourself, and opposing like this the flow of surrendering. And the typical kind of way of escaping this sense of surrendering with the planet Neptune is through escaping into a sense of fake reality, into an illusion. And many people do it through different ways, for example drugs or excessive usage of media and all these kind of sense, everything which brings us out of the present moment in which actually the surrendering is happening, because it is not some kind of very far out super spiritual thing up there somewhere, but it is actually very, very down to the earth, this challenge that this aspect is awakening in us. It is our capacity to be fully present with our awareness, and everything which is, so to say, taking our awareness out of the present moment and out of the flow of action, because of our mental conceptualization and our fears also involved there. This is actually the challenge: how to stay in the present moment and how to stay in the godly will, which is in the end the perfect integration into the harmony of all living beings. Continuing on the same day, the planet Mars is entering in the next sign. So previously it has been in the sign of Virgo, and now it is entering into the sign Libra. And each time that the planet is changing a sign, that's a very important moment for all of us, because it signifies a certain cycle of events and transformation processes inside of us and outside of us in the world. And when Mars is entering in a sign, it means the way or the lessons related with our capacity to employ our willpower, to employ our courage, to be courageous in front of challenges, will change to some extent. Now, the domain of Libra, the sign of Libra, has a lot to do with the area of relationship and the sense of connecting with other people, and also to have a certain sense of balance and harmony around us. Now we see a little problematic in astrology combining the planet Mars with the sign of Libra. It is called to be in the detriment or in the fall in this sign. And this is because Libra is a Venusian sign, and the very essence of Libra is searching for harmony, for the equivalence, for the compromise or the combination of two sides together to form a relationship like this. On the other hand, Mars is the warrior, and it is capable, or the planet Mars is capable for confrontation and challenge everything which doesn't look on the first sight very pretty. And this is why in natal astrology, for example, having the planetary position Mars in Libra, it signifies a certain karma related with the capacity to implore courage. There's a certain sense of indulgement or fear, or to escape certain challenging events like this. And this will be now on a more global level for us in this period where Mars will be in Libra, a topic to not run away from challenge, but also to balance in a certain way our, let's say, overdriving sense of searching for adventure and all of this, to balance it a little bit, to look for a certain balanced approach in going towards challenge, especially the domains of relationship and being courageous to connect with other people. It takes a lot of courage to open up and to invite someone else into our life. And this is exactly one of the stages also where Mars and Libra will be manifest. Continuing with the next aspect on Friday, we have the Sun trining the planet Pluto. Now again, the Sun representing the self and the heart. We facing now a different planet, the planet Pluto. The planet Pluto is representing inside of ourselves the drive for transformation, the drive for intensity, and our capacity to look deep inside of ourselves into a certain underworld, you can say, of our being, the subconscious realm, where we face certain parts of our being which we usually suppress, which we're not looking at. It is the things which we put under the carpet, under the bed, which we don't want to see. And actually these parts of ourselves, which we're not looking at, they have the most power over us, but also they represent the highest power of transformation if we're actually shedding light upon them. And the Sun is the very source of light, the manifestation of consciousness in our own being. And this is also one of the reasons why it's connected with the self, because it is awakening in us the capacity to shed the light of consciousness upon ourself. And now with this trine aspect, which is a certain harmonizing aspect, a certain relationship between the Sun and Pluto of easygoingness, of harmonization, which allows actually in this period, on this day and 1-2 days before and after, to intensify our approach to look at certain difficult parts of ourselves, which we usually don't want to look at. So that's a very good time for intense self-investigation. And to conclude with the last aspect, last important aspect for this week, we're talking about the Venus squaring the planet Saturn. So the planet Venus in astrology is reflecting the capacity in ourselves to enjoy, to feel pleasure, but also to look for certain aesthetics and beauty in the world, and to form harmonious relationships with other people in a romantic sense, but also other kinds of relationship, friendships, business relationships, any way where we are bonding with other people. So the planet Saturn is representing our capacity to be responsible, to be mature, and also to manifest a certain sense of effort to overcome certain limitations of our being. Now, when these two planets form a square aspect, it will manifest in a certain difficult way and in a certain tension, because the square aspect invites us to overcome a certain challenge and tension, to combine the energies of these two planets together. In this sense, it will have a certain invoke in us a certain question of how we can mature in the approach we are forming relationships with other people, but also our very relationship with the nature around us, with our capacity to see beauty in everyone else. And there's this term transfiguration, which is a very important term when we speak about the planet Venus, which is the capacity to see beyond the appearance of things. Because the planet Venus, if we don't approach this from a very deep angle, we tend to get stuck on the surface of reality. We can tend to get stuck on the first appearance of beauty like this. And this is why we would naturally be very selective in things and people around us. We like this part, we don't like this part, and so on and so on. This is a very, let's say, superficial approach in with the Venusian energy. And each time when the planet Saturn is involved, it is inviting us to dive deeper through a certain sacrificial movement in ourselves, to look at the more sublime aspect here. And the more sublime aspect of the planet Venus is to see and to train ourselves to see, because it's really something that we can practice and that we can train, to see beauty all around us. And also to enjoy also certain difficulties around us. During this time and this day, it would be really a good idea to not step away from anything which seems on the first sight difficult, and to, on the other hand, indulge into something which is very easy on the other hand. But really to use this energy to overcome these opposing things, apparently, the thing which is difficult and the thing which is enjoyful or joyful or pleasurable, and to combine these two by putting the heart into that which is difficult. And also to, especially if we meet someone that we don't have a very natural and easygoingness relationship with in our environment, then to make a step and a conscious choice to actively transfigure, to see beyond the appearance and to see the true godly nature of that person and that being or that life situation. So with this, we concluded the weekly most important transits of this week, and I want to remind you that each of these transits now I was speaking about are viewed from a more global and universal perspective, which apply to all of us. Each of these transits have to all the time be put in perspective with our own astrogram, with our own natal chart, to see the very precise effect and manifestation of them in our life. And for this, I recommend to have an astrological reading with me. And you can book one if you go to visit the site esotericastrology.de. And there you can make an appointment and have a session with me. So I wish you a great week. See you soon.